Okay, so recording. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Gary Bostock's here with us. He's going to be doing his presentation on grow houses. Again, as usual, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or send them to me directly. We'll make sure they're all answered at the end of the presentation. Otherwise, Gary, all yours. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining again. If you're new to joining these seminars, we do a series almost every second week. This one is going to be on grow houses. Just see if I can get this to work. Just give me 1 second here. And let's see why it's not skipping. There we go. So if you don't know me and my team, I do have 2 full-time inspectors besides myself. My wife's full-time in the business, and obviously myself. Same as you, we do 7 days a week, and if you can drive there with your clients, pretty much we'll go there with you as well. So if you're concerned about the distance, just give us a call, but typically within an hour and a half from Mississauga we'll go. On occasion you will see this Q code. If you do want to add us to your contacts, just open up your camera, hit this Q code, and all my details will get straight in there. So what we're going to do today is, by the time you finish today, you're going to know actually a lot about how to identify a grow house. Now, you're not going to be able to do any intrusive investigation, but at the end of this, you'll understand what we look for. And you'll have to remember that if we told your clients about everything we were looking for and everything we suspected, they'd never buy a house. Okay, so don't get worried that, you know, we're going to identify a grow house, and just because we see a couple of minor things, we build the picture. And before we would pull the trigger and say something is a grow house, trust me, we will know that it was a grow house. If we only see a couple of indicators, we're not saying anything. We're not even mentioning the indicators. But if we build enough of a puzzle together, if we pull the trigger, you can almost guarantee you that this property would have been a grow house. And I'm going to show you some of the techniques, what we look for. So you'll understand what a grow house is and really how it operates and how it affects the home. That's the big one for us. We're your realtors. We need to know how it's going to affect the home in the sale. How do we recognize it? And then we'll finish with the inspection remediation. So what is a grow house? Obviously, it's a grow house. Marijuana, it's going to grow. Small operations, big operations. Hydroponics is what we're going to spend most of the time on, which is chemicals. We don't see a lot with the soil, and I'll explain why. I'm going to talk about small operations and large operations. And you'll often hear me say, if I was going to buy a house that was a grow-up, I would probably have less issues if it was a large grow-up operation than if it was a small grow-up. Because with a small grow-up, it's likely people like maybe your Uncle Bob, who knows a little bit, and is doing, you know, a couple of 100 plants or maybe 20 plants or, you know, whatever. He's not going to know the best way to do it, and the effects on the house or the damage on the house is probably going to be more than a large operation. And as we go, I'll repeat this a couple of times and explain why. So small grow house, not many plants, got a few high intensity lights, and again, small operation. The trouble with this is they usually don't have the right ventilation or very poor ventilation, so there'll probably be more damage because they're not expelling the moisture enough. They probably haven't done the hydro correctly, so they're overfusing the electrical panels, which means more electrical issues, may have to rewire the entire house. And when I show you some extra pictures later, when we talk about large operations, you'll understand what I mean. So this obviously is a large operation. This is not my Uncle Bob doing this. This is a major grow house. You can see that each one of these high intensity lights all need their own individual power, okay? A transformer, that is. So every light has its own individual transformer. It draws a lot of power, What do the houses look like? Well, the typical MO is, looks like any house, okay? Any house. Now, there are certain MOs where houses may be more prone, which would be if they have an above ground service, probably less likely to be a major grow house because they want to tap into the electrical underground. They do like to back onto schools or somewhere where they don't actually have any rear neighbors as well. It's just less people to be intrusive. But we take a lot of training seminars. We have to do 30 hours of seminars or training a year. Now, I know you do it as realtors, and I think it's every 2 years, but we have to do 30 hours every year. So I do training. I actually went to the OPP site and did training on grow houses. And the guy who did the training for us, he said, I do this for a living. I go around, train trainers on how to train for identifying grow ops. And he said, last year, my next door neighbor got busted as a grow op. He said, all the signs were there, but guess what? And I'm trained for it. He says, not in my back garden. And literally it was his next door neighbor. And after it got busted, he realized all the signs was there, but he had blinkers because he said, I live in a really nice affluent area and I would never have thought it was in my area. So it can happen anywhere. And it's still happening, even though it's decriminalized to buy and smoke. But you talk to people and they're probably still buying from the same supplier. So the grow ops are still as relevant today as they were before we decriminalized it. So large operations, okay, usually a rented home. I don't believe that it's a purchased home. I don't really believe in the MO2. They're not people that really want to throw their money away or get something more tied to them. But typically it's a rented home. They turn the entire home and it can be very invasive, and the damages we're going to address shortly. Why do they do it? It's all about the big dollar, right? So on average, 200 plants per home, okay? They'll do 4 to 6 harvests a year, okay? So when you start doing the math, 300,000, 6 harvests, 1.8 million, not a bad year, okay? So that's why they do it. Strictly about the money. It's a big turnover, nice profit, but they don't want to get caught, obviously. Most of these grow houses, they're done with hydroponics, which is chemicals, okay? You could get some with soil, but the thing is, somebody's just rented your next door and then you see wheelbarrows of soil going into the house. Well, it's a bit of a tip off, okay? So most of them are done using chemicals. They also say that it gives you a better product, lusher, greener, okay? And the trouble is though, when we're using chemicals, it also increases the fire risk. So it can completely grow indoors, okay? So that, it's not spread, the roots are not spreading out in the soil, but it grows faster and larger. And I've got some great pictures coming up for you as well, guys, so don't worry about that. You'll get a better understanding as we start seeing this. So I'm going to come back to this picture. I think I show this picture at least one more time, maybe two. But basically, we've got to get power at the end of the day. We've got to get power for all these high intensity lights, okay? So there's 4 areas we're going to concentrate on here. Electrical, which is the big one. Structural, I'm going to talk about structural, but structural damage isn't always that bad on a grow house, and I'll address that. The cosmetics, and then the mold, and we'll cover these in order. The big one is electrical though. So we need to get power to all these plants. We've got to run all these high intensity lights. Each one of them runs, we're talking, we need 125 amps. Most homes are 100 amp service, okay? So what they're going to do, we're going to address trying to steal the hydro, because if they're going to pay for the hydro, they've got to run all this power, run all these cables, okay? If they start getting big hydro bills, okay, the police are not stupid, okay? Hydro's not stupid, and they will feed this information. So if suddenly now you're getting these whopping, 10,000 a year hydro bills, there's 2 things. It's a flag that could tell you there's something going on there that doesn't do that, unless it's a family of 5 and they all own Teslas, okay? So there's a flag that comes up. Second, they're into this to make money. So they don't want to, so they don't want to pay an extra 10,000 a year. Okay. So it's a lot of power. So there's all the stats: 125 amps, 130,000 kilowatts per year. It just tells you how much it costs. They don't want to pay this and don't want to get caught. So what they're going to do, they've got 125 amp service. They've either got to upgrade the service or steal it, what we call upstream. And this is what I'm going to show you. They're going to steal the hydro. So again, they don't want to get caught. So there's two major ways they can steal the hydro. They can tamper with the meter itself, and they'll do that upstream. The trouble is, if they're going to tamper with the meter's usually on the exterior of the house, which means people passing by or the hydro people could inspect that without having to get inside the house or get a warrant to go inside the house and realize that the hydro's being stolen. So they'll tend to go to the second one I'm going to show you, which is tapping upstream. So they can remove the meter, they can insert a shunt, okay, replace the meter, okay. And just so you know what I'm talking about, this is the meter, for those of you that have always seen this on the outside of your house and didn't know what it was. And this is what a shunt is. So right here, these two copper splices they put in. Imagine if this was a river and we had a small little river going down. They basically cut two more channels around. So they're diverting some of the hydro around. Only the hydro going through the middle, okay, is going to be clocking up any bills for your lights and things like that. But they're bypassing the majority of it. So this is called shunts. But if they do this, they have to, first of all, break the utility seal to get in there. And if they've got any sense, they'd put the utility seal back on. But the thing is, this could be inspected without getting a license to go inside the house. So it's not the best way to do it, but this is one area. So we're going to basically talk about stealing the hydro, what's called upstream, which is what most professional grow houses are going to do. And it is dangerous, but it is simple enough. I mean, I wouldn't be putting the cables on. But what they're going to do is, this is if they're doing it from the exterior, they're not going to go into the drip loop. That's why we say a typical MO is a home that does not have an above ground service. It's an underground service. So on this picture, here's your typical box. But here's your main trunk. So this trunk is coming all the way from underground. It's going through the box. Your hydro gets counted on your usage. It then comes back down. And then if we follow this through, that would go to the electrical box. Okay. So they know if that main trunk, comes right underneath the electrical box. So they basically jackhammer out the basement wall. And then they know that behind there, they're going to see the main hydro trunk before it hits the meter. That's the key, before it hits the meter. So any hydro they steal now from that cable is free. Okay, so they're just going to cut that out. We're going to come back to this picture again, I think, later. And because I know you're thinking structural damage. It's not, but we're going to get to that later. So this is how they steal upstream. And then someone who's got some big kahunas is going to have to go in there and splice into those cables. Once they pull those cables out, they're free and clear to do whatever they want. Okay. So they've run the cables. That's where they connect from. So they know, they break through the foundation wall at the bottom. They know they're going to hit the main trunk before it hits the meter. So they're still going to get an electrical bill, but the electrical bill is just going to be whatever's going through the meter that's going through the regular panel. So just a normal bill. And then they can install 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 more panels if they want to start running all the lights. Okay. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is it's 100 amp. We need 125 amp on. So let's say Uncle Jimmy is doing his own little, 20, 30 plants. This is going to trip it. This panel cannot supply 125 amp. So all he's going to do is going to overfuse this. So when he overfuses it, he's going to put an amp in that is not going to tell it when it's 100 amp, so it won't trip. So when a mom and pop does it, if they overfuse the panel, it means more than likely that all the wiring in the entire house, okay, may need to be replaced, because all those wires that were only rated for certain amperage have all been overheated. So because we're not touching the wiring when we tap in upstream, there should be zero issues with the electrical in the home in a major grow up if they've taken the hydro upstream. Okay, so that's why I come back to saying there's probably less damage, plus the ventilation is likely a lot better on a professional grow up than a small one. So the effects on the home, okay, what would they do? They'd remove the illegal panel and the wiring, okay. None of the household wiring's been used, so it's good. So little to no chance that there's any issues, okay. Replace the service cable. You're not going to do that. Hydro's going to do that. We're going to fill in the hole. Good to go. Yes, they've cut a hole in the foundation. No big deal. Just going to seal it up. Okay, remortar it. Done. Away you go. So easy peasy. Okay. Now later on, you're going to find that we still have to get an ESA certificate done when we go through the different levels we need to do to get the approval to resell the house. But we'll cover that in a few more minutes. So again, I've already covered this. Less savvy operators, could have overfused. We may need to do some replacement of electrical. But basically, if we know it was upstream, you should be plain sailing on electrical issues within the home. Fill the hole up, damp proof it, we're good to go. So fire danger, that's the biggest risk we have in a home with a grow house, is fire damage or the house burning down, okay? Obviously, the landlord's unsuspecting. But I'm going to show you some pictures, and when I start showing these pictures of the wiring required in a home, in a grow house, you'll totally understand why fire is the biggest issue. So major grow house in a basement. And that's just some of the wiring. I mean, in every one of those high intensity lights, every one of those needs a transformer. So, you see those lights there, but now you're realizing what needs to be done to power all those lights. Gives you a totally different perspective when you see these pictures and you realize why fire is the biggest damage. Plus, with all the liquids we have going around, I mean, hydro and liquids don't go well, even if it's not flammable. And if you've got to make a quick escape, better be nimble. There's enough stuff there to trip you over. So a lot of these pictures were provided to us from the OPP. They were really, really good one, went there for the training. So electrical is the big one. It really is. I know everyone's saying it's probably mold, Gary. Well, only up to a certain degree, and I'll explain why now. So let's look at some potential structural damage, okay? It's not likely there's going to be major structural damage, but there can be. There's not one fits all, but in most cases, it's not a big concern for you. Unless the grow house has been used for years and years and years, it takes a long period of time for mold to cause structural damage, okay? Doesn't mean it can't, it can, but it's not likely unless it's been going a long, long time. And most people who do grow houses may rent a place for 1 or 2 years, a year, 2 years, and then just move and go to the next one. They're likely not going to stay until they get caught, because they will. So we've got to take the venting. We've got to vent all this hot air out, right? So we've got these high intensity lights and we've got them everywhere. The heat is tremendous. We've got to vent that out as much as we can, okay? So we're going to go likely right up through the roof line. So when you see something like this, you think, oh, there's structural damage. Well, if they, I don't see why they're going to cut through a joist if they don't need to, right? So likelihoods is, now, could they cut through a joist? Yes. Structural damage? Yes, but we'd probably just sister up the board and on we go. So basically we've got to go, if it's a bungalow, we're going through one level, if it's and just the ceiling. If it's a two-story, we're having to go through the next ceiling as well. And you'll likely notice that sometimes when we do inspections, well, not sometimes, all the times, when we go into closets, we always look at the ceilings in closets, as we look at all ceilings, but mainly in closets as well, because if we see that there's been patchwork done in a closet, a lot of people don't realize, but a lot of homes, when they're built, it's just like bathrooms are on top of each other because all the plumbing's in one place. Quite often, if you've got a closet on your main floor, you usually have a bedroom closet above it, okay? So if people want to hide things a little better, sometimes they'll go through a closet, hole through the closet ceiling, through the floor, through the next closet. If I was to see a patch in a closet ceiling and the same patch again in the closet up next door, that's a big telltale sign, okay? It doesn't just so happens, yes, water went through both, it's possible, but it's a good telltale sign. And again, if we saw something like that, we would expect to see more identifiers to pull that together. But that's one of the things people do. They will go through closets, okay? So they end up venting directly into the attic. So when we see really, really excessive, it doesn't mean it's a grow house. Again, it's not, we will not tell your clients what we're looking for. I'm telling you this as me training you as realtors, but you're pulling a picture together and you're not going in the attic because you're not carrying your ladders. This is intrusive for you, but not for us on a home inspection. So yes, we see a tremendous amount of black mold in an attic because they're venting it right in there and it's excessive. Could cause wood rot, but it would have to be a long term. So again, deal breaker? Well, no, there's mold in the attic. We see it all the time. So if it's 10% mold, 50% mold, 90% mold, or 100% mold, the cost's the same. Just because it's more mold than others doesn't increase the cost, because they don't spot clean mold. When you get mold remediation done, they do the entire attic, the whole amount. So it's irrelevant if it's 10%, 90%. So $3,000 done, not a make or break, okay? But yes, it's going in to the attic and we need to remediate it. And on anything that we find as inspectors, anything we find doesn't bother us, because as long as if we find a deficiency and we know what caused the deficiency, and you fix that deficiency and then clean up the issue or fix the issue, you're good to go. You don't have to, think about moving or doing anything else. It's when we find an issue and we can't see what caused it, that's a little bit more difficult for us, because something's caused it. We need to know what it is so we can fix it and remediate it. So here's a couple of other pictures here. And this just showing you the chemicals, all the different chemicals they use. So imagine this, all this combined with all the electrical we have, okay? So mold, and for those of you that have been following my series of presentations, I did an entire one on mold. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but yes, we're going to have the mold because it's high humidity. And again, when we talk about if we don't want mold, we need a dry house, okay? You need heat, you need moisture, okay, which is going to create that. You need the nutrients. Well, the nutrients for mold is everywhere, and we have the mold spores. But most of it is surface mold, okay? So structural from the mold within the home, very unlikely, okay? Because remember, behind the drywall, we then have a vapor barrier, because the vapor barrier is always installed on the warm side of the wall, okay? So what's it going to do? It's going to get through the drywall and then get through the vapor barrier and then go to where? So typically with mold, we're talking about surface mold, okay? So again, it's unlikely it's going to cause any structural issues. But again, is it a health risk? Absolutely it is. But remember, why is the mold there? Because it's a grow house. Okay, so if you don't use it as a grow house and you remediate the mold and clean the mold down, and you're not going to use it as a grow house again, problem's fixed. Yes, there's some steps we're going to have to go through that I'll tell you later, but that's the end result again. There's mold. What caused it? Grow house. Well, we're not using it as a grow house. Clean the mold up, good to go. It's not going to come back. Okay. So yes, it looks nasty. Could you cut down the drywall and re-drywall? Absolutely. Would I at this stage? I don't know. It depends how good it comes off first time round. Okay. But again, even if you have to re-drywall, you've got your vapor barrier behind it, right? So it's not going through. Okay. So I've got a picture for those people that don't understand, but if on an outside wall, if you cut a piece of your drywall out, you would hit your vapor barrier. Okay. If you did it on an inside wall, you're not hitting a vapor barrier because we don't have a vapor barrier or insulation on an inside wall. It's not required. Okay. But the vapor barrier always goes to the warm side of the wall, not the opposite side. Otherwise, we can create mold on the inside. So that's how it works. Okay. So if you were inside the house over here, here's your drywall. If you cut the drywall, you would hit your vapor barrier. Okay. Then your insulation, then your sheathing. Okay. Then you're outside. Okay. So that's why we don't really concern ourselves with mold behind the walls in a grow house. So recognizing one, well, all those things I've just said, but windows blacked out all the time. People are arriving and going all at different times of the house. Unusual odors. What does it smell like? Smells skunky, just like a skunk. And it smells like that just in the germination period. Okay. So every 6 weeks, you may be smelling. If you smell it 6 weeks really strong for a week or so, and then not again, and then, well, that's someone's hit a skunk again, and then again, another month later, and again. Okay. It's that kind of smell. Okay. Now, the police use some different tricks to try and find these grow houses. Heat monitoring, because the high intensity lights give off a lot of heat. Obviously, we're venting all that heat out into the attic. Okay. They do use infrared on flybys. Okay. Believe it or not, they do. So you've got to figure this subdivision was all built at the same time. They've got the same insulation in the attics. Okay. Yeah, you can just see there at the far right, that house just seems to have a couple of bare spots on the roof. Could it be poor insulation? Sure. Could it be a bathroom vent going in there? Could be, but I mean, heck, it would have to put a lot of heat out there to heat that attic up to a point to melt the snow. Now you start zooming in. So this is screaming at you that something's going on here. Something's melting all that snow in those areas. Next time it snows, after you've done this course, you're going to be looking at homes a different way when you're driving down your street now, okay? Again, right? All built at the same time, likely the same insulation, same number of bathrooms, this, that, and the other. This amount of, could the insulation be that poor that much heat is escaping? Nah, unlikely. But these are the things that, typically you'd be walking around your subdivision, wouldn't even give it a second thought, but there it is. So like I say, yes, there's other things that could make it do that. Okay. But in a general, at that amount, again, it's all telltale signs. Yes, it's rented. The windows are blacked out. People come and go at all different times. Okay. Now, signs of a police bust, yeah, possibly previously. However, domestics can be a police bust too, or something else. Okay. But these are all things, evidence of electrical tampering, holes in, okay, unused knockouts in the electrical panel. So when you have a standard electrical panel and we have little round discs with the plastic today, but some of the older ones are all metal. If you've seen, they've all been broken off and we see multiple holes down each side. it's a little bit of a telltale sign to us of why would someone break out all those holes? Because if we see them, we tell you you've got to put a filler in there. But you only break those out when you want to put something in. So did Uncle Bill break all those off and when he had the extra lines going in? Again, we are not going to pull the trigger and say it was a grow house unless we have a good enough understanding. And as inspectors, we want to see what we call an elephant, a white elephant in the room. We want to see one major identifier that is a no-brainer to us, okay? So combinations, circles on the floor from where all the pots have been, okay? Recently painted foundation, walls and floor, screw holes every 3 feet, all the way down the joist. We can see all these holes, and that's what they use to hang all the lights, okay? So these are all things that, unusual corrosion, because of that amount of high humidity, even though they're venting out, they're still going to be like a greenhouse in there. So now we're seeing corrosion on areas that shouldn't have corrosion because they're not exposed to the moisture or water, okay? So we're seeing a lot of corrosion even on the, well, basically everywhere in an open basement. So a police bus, yes, maybe, but not definitely. But obviously, someone has knocked the door down, the police. Now we talk about if we see what's called a white elephant. This, if you see this, we know this has been patched. I'm telling you right now, no ands, no ifs, no buts. If you see that the wall has been patched right below the electrical panel, this was a grow house, okay? So now, if we see this, I can guarantee you before we get to the basement, because we inspect from the top to bottom, before we get to this, we've probably already seen other identifiers, excessive mold in the basement, okay? Maybe patches in the ceilings, in the walls. But you see this, we would have to be saying, here's what's happening. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Gary, they had to repair, there was some issues, so hydro came in. No, trust me, if hydro come in, you're not letting them knock out your basement wall to get to the wires. They're just going to dig down 3 feet from the exterior and do any fixing they need to do. If you see this, 99.999, it was a grow house. Okay, this is a massive identifier, so keep that one in mind. So there's a couple of different levels that on remediation or things you have to do to relist a grow house, and it changes by municipality. The municipality dictates what you need to do to get a clearance for a grow house. First of all, you should confirm it was busted as a grow house. So there's 2 ways things go. If we know 100% it was a grow house, that's fine. But if it was never busted as a grow house, you can't put the label on as a grow house, right? And basically it's legal. You could see me shoot somebody and kill somebody in the street and I go to court and I get off, and then I'm not a murderer, even though you saw me. So even if you know it was a grow house, if there's nothing that it was ever laid with charges and ever went through legally, you don't have to say it was a grow house, okay? Even though we know it was. So you should find out what the legal standing is and if it was ever busted as a grow house. To get a clearance, it could be, $1,000. They may just want an air test done. But quite often, you may need to do a full environmental assessment, which means you've got to, usually we get a hygienist in. Well, I'll say a hygienist. We actually do mold samples. We can do air mold samples. So we'd go in, we'd run the samples we need to do. And that has to be done first. If it comes back too high, remediation has to be done. And then we have to run samples again. So it comes through negative for the mold counts, because you won't get the structural engineer in or the electrician or the HVAC guy in unless they're allowed to go in and they know it's safe. So first of all, we have to make it safe. Once it's made safe, then you've got to get a structural engineer report done, usually a no-brainer. Then you've got to get a HVAC company in to inspect the HVAC, see if they, check all that. You've got to get that report done. Then you've got to get your electrical safety authority report done. And if it was, like I say, a big grow up, that's probably just going to be like, 400, 450 bucks. They're just going to come in, check some stuff, stamp it. But you have to go through all these stages. Okay. So this can get fairly expensive. And again, it's based on the municipality of what level they want you to go. If you're in London, oh man, they want you to cut a 2 foot square, two by 2 square out of the drywall under every single window in every room. Why? I've got no idea. We've already explained that there's no issues because we have the vapor barrier, but that's what they dictate. And then you've got to patch it all up again. It's a nightmare for people, but different municipalities, different rules. So I'm just going to show you a few more pictures here from different busts that we also got supplied. Like I say, pictures speak 1,000 words. Obviously, this was out on a farm. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something from that. Again, if you've got your own inspector and you're happy, that's great. But if you ever need something in a jam, give us a call. We have the ability to do 6 inspections a day between the 3 of us. Well, actually only 4 right now because I'm doing this seminar from the UK in my sister's house. I've just come to see family for a few weeks. But we are still doing business. I'm still answering the phones as well and doing the bookings and everything else you need to do. But I do appreciate your time, and we've got close to 2,000 reviews now. We do use an outside company. We can't change a review, but we can add to a review. And if you want to go to my website, just scan my QR code and you'll be linked up there. So I appreciate everyone's time. Hope everything's going well. I hope inventory is freeing up a little bit. I know it's been a little bit tight the last couple of months. And I'm not sure if anyone's sent any messages there, Matt, or not, that I need to answer.
No, actually not this time, but we'll just give everyone a couple seconds if they have any lingering questions. They're just busy typing in, so just give them 2 seconds to ask that.
If they want to talk to me directly, you can unmute them as well. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever works, Matt.
Yeah, let me just get a quick. There you. If you guys want to ask them a question directly, you have the ability to unmute yourselves and ask away. Otherwise, feel free to type it in. We'll get to it. That's great, Gary. Now I know all the tips and tricks when I start my next grow up. I'm not gonna get caught at all.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the invites as usual, and I'll talk to you guys in a few weeks.
We just have one actually thing get typed in here. Can you get normal insurance on a former grow up?
Yes, you can. They don't normally put a premium on it, but yes, you can get normal insurance on it. It more comes down to I'd have no problems buying a grow house. I absolutely wouldn't. And if I bought a house that had gone through all the tests and certificates, I've probably got the healthiest house on the street, but I would want a discount because it's going to stay with the house, right? So you will always have to discount a house that was a grow up, even if it's in mint condition, because it's going to have that stigma to it forever. But I wouldn't have any hesitations buying a grow house, but I'd have the expectations when I sell it. Some people are not going to want to buy it, and whoever does buy it is also going to want to break on the price.
Absolutely. And what about house smell? If there's been a grow up a couple months back, but it's been stopped, does that smell linger, and does it get into the fabric and the carpet and got like cigarette smell does?
Oh, you're not keeping the carpet. No, that's all coming up. Oh yeah, no question.
So it's definitely going to linger.
Yeah. But there's a company out there called Fresh Start. They're called now. I actually met them at one of the Mississauga real estate show many years ago, and they have these pucks, fantastic, look like a hockey puck. You can also get the liquid, and you put this hockey puck out, and you pour hot water on it, and you leave the house for a day, and it smells a bit like a swimming pool. But I'm telling you, my sister, where I'm staying at now, my 2 brothers, they all own holiday apartments in Blackpool. So they have a lot of people, they still smoke in the rooms, or, they've done, curries, and the smell lingers, and it permeates almost the walls. They put that, I bought $500 worth and brought it over for them. They put one of these pucks in. It's phenomenal, phenomenal product. Smoke, anything. You put it in, it's gone and doesn't come back. I think it's called Fresh Start. I think that's what it's called because they changed their names. But you know, if you're selling a house where there was a smoker in or something like that, or even in the garage, sometimes these garages stink of smoke. The people smoke there. Yeah, if you can't find them, spin me a text or email, and my wife will send you the details. That it's a fabulous product. Yeah, fabulous.
Oh, does it work on pet odors?
Everything. It's unbelievable.
Wow,
Oh yeah,
right.
it's phenomenal. Cat pee, all that stuff, unbelievable.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
And I think they're just out. I think her office is she's in Cambridge or Kitchener. Yeah, but yeah, I got her information. Oh man, maybe even 15 years ago, I got her information from her. She was at Mississauga Real Estate Show.
Oh, perfect. And we have one last follow-up regarding the insurance question, applying to mortgages. Will it affect the ability to obtain a mortgage of property if it's been used as a grow house?
Well, I would say no, because they still get sold every day, and I'm sure people aren't buying them for cash. There's no reason. Once you've got all those certificates done, there's nothing wrong with the house. So I would say no, not at all.
Perfect. All right, so that's the last question. Thanks very much, Gary. Appreciate it.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. I'll see you in 2 or 3 weeks. I forget when the next one is, but I'll be here.
The next one is on October 6th. So the first Wednesday of October.
Great. I'll be here. No
Perfect.
problem.